Bender, NCAA shows progress in its rulings, and that's a start. One is a good rule, and one is a horrible rule, Holgorsen told Sporting News shortly after the rule changes were announced. I think that's going to be a pretty standard response from coaches across the country. One NCAA ruling allows players to play in as many as 4 games and still be allowed to claim a redshirt season. That's clearly a win-win for all parties, coaches and student-athletes. The other ruling mandates players can submit their intent to transfer, obliging their current school to post the player's name in a national database within 2 business days, at which point other coaches can contact the player. Conferences still have autonomy in regard to provision of financial aid and in-conference transfers. It's a removal from the previous practice that required student-athletes to get permission from their current school to contact another program before they could receive a scholarship. That rule, Holgorsen said, could be fraught with peril. Here's my thought on it, and I've been pretty vocal about this. Nobody forces kids to sign that national letter of intent, Holgorsen said. They do that voluntarily. We spend thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours recruiting kids, and they sign that national letter of intent. The way I raised my kids is, if they commit to something, then the end game is a degree. I mean, ultimately, they're student-athletes. Half of their reasoning for going to those schools is to play football, and the other half is to get a college degree. More, ranking coaches 1 to 130 just this off-season, Holgorsen blocked the transfer of Lamont McDougal, a freshman All-American defensive lineman who eventually transferred to Washington State after Holgorsen restricted him from transferring to any team on the Mountaineers' schedule within the next 4 years. Holgorsen doesn't have a problem with transfers. Several current Mountaineers, including potential All-American quarterback Will Grier, came to WVU as transfers. Holgorsen added he's a big proponent of the graduate transfer rule, which enables players who have achieved their degree to transfer wherever they want. The Mountaineers in 2018 have 2 such players expected to contribute on their defensive line, USC's Kenny Bigelow and Clemson's Jabril Robinson. WVU also makes a good living off junior college transfers. We get a lot of transfers for a lot of different reasons, he said. Junior college. We hammer junior colleges. Well, guess what? The only way those junior college kids can come here is if they've got their 2-year degree. They fulfilled their obligation where they're at, they got their 2-year degree and they're coming to us. And then we do well with grad transfers as well. I realize there's some situations, like our quarterback, who's obviously a heck of a player for us, that his circumstances were different, and I do think that kids have the right to transfer. But if they can just transfer and be immediately eligible, legislation allowing open transfers per student-athlete's grade point average was recently under consideration. I think this thing's going to be the wild, wild west, and kids are going to transfer the first time they get upset. And that happens quite often. More, ranking Big 12 coaches, both student-athletes and coaches, Holgorsen said, will benefit from the amended redshirt rule. 2 years ago, WVU went into the 11th game of the season without a healthy running back, so Holgorsen took freshman Martell Pettaway out of redshirt. Pettaway responded well with 181 yards and a touchdown against Iowa State, but it cost him a full season of eligibility. Oklahoma State quarterback Mason Rudolph went through a similar situation his freshman year, coming out of redshirt with 2 games left in the regular season, and now the Cowboys have all kinds of quarterback concerns, so circumstances like that I think are important, Holgorsen said. A lot of times this happens, too. A kid has a good camp in August and you think he's going to play and continue to get better, and then after about 3 or 4 games, that kid's hit a wall because he's 18 years old and he's not used to the grind of college football, and we say, oh geez, Wish we could redshirt that kid now, and now it's going to give us an opportunity to be able to test a lot of young kids for 1 game, 2 games, 3 games, whatever it is, and then be able to make a decision on whether it's in that kid's best interest to be able to save his year or not. But I think it's very positive.